Yeah,
all sides of the aisle,
100%, man. 100%. Let me pause this gameplay recording so that way I can file that into Brian Makes Videos About New World. And we should be live now. So that's how it's rocking and rolling. Guys, if you're interested in it, because I don't have the ability to connect this to Twitch because I'm already live on Twitch, because right after the show, I'm going to go back and play some Final Fantasy 14. Going to be just hanging out with y'all. So if y'all are following on Twitch, hopefully y'all want to stick around. But thank you, Johnny, for coming. We're going to dive into the podcast officially here in a second.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is a birthday podcast, man. I was really happy. I was like, every time you and I can sit down, every time you and I can sit down and just chat, it's just a fun time. So I got my sip of water. Are you ready? There's no outline. We're just going to be talking New World, its impact, the state of the MMO. Some really light topics.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know.
You're especially now.
All right, man. I'm hitting record as a professional. I'm making sure it ticks up. One time I hit record and it's like it'll act like it was recording. Thankfully, it wasn't. Thankfully, it wasn't a podcast. It was only like a 6-minute video, and then it was like, oh, okay, all right, what's going on? All right, I am going to go over here. I'm gonna put in a New World background. There we go. Not that people are really seeing it, but I know it's there. And Sarah will be back in about 25 minutes. All right, see you in a little bit. All right, let's do this thing. 1, 2, 3. Hello and welcome to Epic Loot Radio. My name is Brian. Joining me, my co-host position today, Johnny Mac Games. Coming and hanging out, we're going to be talking about New World, the state of the MMO RPG. Some light topics for this week. Hopefully this is going to be a little bit fun. This has been my birthday week, and I just have been having a great day. Julie took the kids to see her parents, and so I got up this morning, got a workout in. I got some fajitas. That's important to me. And I was just playing a little bit of New World before the beta officially ends this weekend. So you and I got to play it at launch. And so then there was some progress, there were some setbacks, some login queues and more, but I've seen that you've been able to play a little bit more of the game. Johnny also has been covering a lot of Lost Ark. If you guys are excited about Lost Ark, you got to go give this man a follow. Now, I'm a bad host. I don't have all the links and stuff done yet at the time of this recording, but when this video and this audio goes up, Johnny's information is going to be right there for you guys. Please go give him a follow. He is creeping up on that 1K YouTube goal. And once, even outside the watch time, I don't know where you are in terms of YouTube partner and watch time, but that number opens up a lot of really key features, being able to tag different channels and things like and that. So honestly, if you like anything he says, please go follow this man, and his links and information will be in the show notes. But Johnny, welcome back to the podcast. How is life going, and how's the last couple of weeks been for you?
Oh, it's been doing pretty good. Been pretty good. I actually been up since 3 a.m. I just got off work, as you know, just a little bit ago. So in the past 48 hours, I worked 31 of them. So yeah, always busy.
For those who don't know, what do you do?
So I'm the senior dialysis technician at my clinic. I'm approaching this November working for the same company for 7 years. So,
yeah, that's amazing, man.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a promotion right now. Hopefully it'll go through, and it'll put me in a key position to train any new employees that come through, probably for my entire region. So
helping people, dialysis, that's a real critical thing. So thank you for your work, especially like anybody in healthcare this last year. But let's talk about video games.
Yes,
that's what we're here to do, man.
Yes.
How has your New World experience been so far? This is obviously a beta. But yeah, what's your take on it? What's your read?
So I absolutely love the logging. I'm not going to lie. Listen, I know, as funny as it sounds, the logging chat. My God. I haven't had so much fun gathering or doing anything resource-wise since Final Fantasy 11. And that's been, 20 years?
Yeah, 20 years next year.
So that aspect alone is it's absolutely awesome. It's you want to chill out. Hey, I'm going to cut some logs. Let's go cut some trees down. Watch them fall. Watch me swing my axe,
Yeah.
But, oh man, I mean, it's been, I'm not going to lie, it's been mixed because, my computer is not a slouch. Last year, it's 2080 Super, got plenty of RAM, but my God, I cannot stream the game and play it at the same time. Like it just causes all kinds of encoder errors and so forth and so on. Have found that I'm actually one of the lucky few that had very little problems as far as the actual gameplay itself. Like I saw online, a lot of people were having like weird run animation
Yeah, I
glitches,
saw that from
and
Josh Strife
yeah,
Hayes, who he put out that video, and it's like his arms are moving and his legs aren't. And honestly, it is so
yeah,
funny. It is so funny to me
it is,
because it's like, oh man, like when things don't work, you can tell, but when they are
right,
working, it's like it is a beautiful thing. Go ahead, please
right.
continue.
Yeah, and it's hilarious too. I love the fishing. The fishing is awesome.
Yeah,
It's absolutely awesome. They definitely nailed the fishing. The user interface, hands down, probably one of the best user interfaces I've seen on an MMO. Like they really did nail the user interface.
yeah,
Now, my biggest quip right now is by far the AI. The AI is obviously it's just too scripted. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. A lot of room.
yeah. And that's the
And
beauty of it being a service-based game, though, is that
mhm,
this isn't like when the game launches on the 31st. That's just the start. Like that's
right.
just the firing pistol. Oh yeah. Hey guys, we upgraded the AI. It's a couple of months in. Oh
Yeah.
neat. Oh
Yeah.
wow, you can and then people could really end up being able to feel that like, wow, I felt the difference or
Mhm.
no, it still feels scripted. But continue on, please.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the AI, and I feel that they're going to be making a lot of more intricate changes to the combat system as well. There's right now, there's not a lot of tells. It's one of those, as soon as throw your move of whatever you're going to do, that's basically it. You're committed. And, sometimes it's, a situation where it's like a do or die, one wrong thing with bad timing and yeah, you're dead,
Yeah.
is what it is. So I feel there's going to be a lot of heavy changes coming to the combat system because I think come launch, I don't know that a lot of people are going to like it in its current state, but it is in a good state to build off of. So overall, my general impressions of the game is, it's in a pretty good state to build from, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely anxious to see like how it's going to perform overall and where it's going to go and how fast it's going to go. Because as well as I do, like 2021 is the year of the MMO. Like it's absolutely insane. If 5 years ago someone would have told me that we had this many MMOs launching in a single year's time span, I'd be
Yeah.
like, get the hell out of here. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
MMOs haven't really been a major thing. Well, I mean, let's face it, in 20 years, really, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
You
When
know?
people I think companies really struggled to step up against WoW. And a lot of
Mhm.
it was they didn't really try to do anything better or also have the list of features that WoW had. It was always like they'd come in less than and
Right.
expect people like, oh yeah, come over from WoW and to this game that's very similar to your current game, and then it just never ended up. And
Yeah.
so then I think essentially that's where you all of a sudden started seeing kind of the investment dry up and innovation kind of
Exactly.
being that outside of the recent Blizzard Activision issues and the WoW issues with it just not releasing content and just people frustrated with BFA and Shadowlands and insert why you left WoW here. Like yeah, 14 is still it's an 11-year-old game.
Mhm.
Like Guild Wars 2 is like a 12-year-old game. Like these are games that are that's when you think of it. ESO what is like 7 or 8 years. These are
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah. So it's
thereabouts.
like these games are like big. And it's hard to compete against somebody who's got a 16-year head start
Right,
on you. And
and billions of dollars in their back pocket at that too, so
yeah, well, and that's where Amazon is an interesting case study. A lot of people
mhm,
have been saying that because Amazon hasn't done anything great in gaming yet, that means they're not going to continue to do like it's just like because of this, New World's going to suck, and that's actually the best thing for New World. Like that
yeah,
is I think the best thing going into release for New World is that up to this point, before people actually got to go hands on and say, "Wow, like there's something here." What was that? It's like all New World, like New World's gonna suck, man. It's just gonna be a bad game, and then it's like, well, I mean, you're setting a low bar. Like all the game has to do is not suck, and then all of a sudden
right,
you're like, hey, that's actually better than I thought, as opposed to like other MMOs out there that are on the horizon that people have put a lot of faith and hope in. I want them to succeed by all means.
Right.
I want to play the version of Ashes that I've seen and read about and heard about. But when I hear the community talk about that game, I'm like, ooh, man, that's a tall order. But yeah, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're totally fine. Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with you. You know, all the game has to do is not suck, and it's not terrible now, in my
Right.
opinion. And yeah, I think there's a big misunderstanding. Everybody they want to hear Amazon, but they forget it's not Amazon, it's Amazon Game Studios. Yes, Amazon is a $1 trillion company. Everybody knows it. Everybody
Yeah.
the world over, unless you live under a rock, knows Amazon, right?
Yeah.
But Amazon Game Studios, no one except for, maybe the internal, ties and suits knows exactly how much funding they're willing to delegate to Amazon Game Studios. Because, I keep hearing this statement, well, it's not a $1 trillion company game. It's not a $1 trillion. Okay, that's understood. However, it's not Amazon, it's Amazon Game Studios. And what their budget is, no one knows except for those who are in the know.
But I think that's where people, I don't know where they get that kind of level of expectation. Like, no one's
Yeah,
going to spend
exactly.
$1 trillion on a game. And like right now, I think Halo is going on as the most expensive game developed, and that's by
Probably hands
Microsoft,
down.
another $1 trillion company, right? So when I look at it, I go, it's also, again, not about how it launches. I think the most critical milestone for New World is, when is their first big update? Not expansion,
Mhm.
because the expansion is also an interesting question, which we don't know the answer to. But when is their first big update? Is it October? Is it November? Is it 2022? Like, the longer that gap becomes, the easier it is for the player base to be like, okay. So that has to either be commuted and committed to, or surprised and delivered consistently.
Right.
So what do you think? What would be the best first update for this game?
So my opinion on that would be is that if they plan on not losing any momentum, because Lost Ark, which already has a proven player base, a very loyal player base, there's actually a huge player base here in North America for playing the foreign versions of the game. I myself, I play the Russian version, and there are still other North Americans that play the Korean version, Japanese version. They're there, and they're ready. Like, they are burning ready to jump over, and it's slated for October, and it will launch in October. The beta actually went extremely well. From my understanding, from those who are in the know, that beta was fantastic. But that was to be expected because they've already got a polished version of the game anyway. So all they're really doing now is just localization, which really is not much of anything. Is translation.
Well, and servers, right? One of the things that I think, the only thing I could think that would make Lost Ark a better experience is a local server in my native language. I really enjoyed Lost Ark. I've been seeing that it's up for pre-order right now, and the different kind of packs options, and I'm just like, all right, Brian, just wait.
yeah. I dropped $100 on the platinum one.
Yeah.
But so with Lost Ark launching in October, if they want to be able to retain their share, so to speak, because they're trying to weasel their way in through a very narrow crack, which is appealing to a niche market right now. Because now the MMO populace is scattered to the four winds. You got a huge congregation that have flocked to Final Fantasy 14. Then of course you got the Final Fantasy 14 loyalists, but there's still a bunch of people. I mean, even Asmongold himself isn't truly dead set on any MMO right now. He's got his little feelers everywhere.
He's got fingers in he's got his fingers in all the pies right now.
Yeah.
Well, especially with the way Blizzard's going. Like, at some point you're like, well, what am I doing here? And he says he's not gonna quit. And then I'm like, well, how far is Blizzard willing to push that theory?
Yeah. And I'm with you on that. I mean, and it's hilarious too, because I actually watched one of his latest videos where he was going over a couple of their tweets, and they're like, oh, we're taking this NPC out that was pretty much bad for the game, got some really bad PR because it was based off a previous employee who was known to have done some very bad, heinous things. And he was absolutely right whenever he said, they're just playing the part. They're taking important social issues and they're putting a PR spin on it and trying to make themselves look good. Well, in his words, and not to steal the words right out of his mouth, I'm going to quote him, just do the effing thing. Like, get the work done. If you're really that legitimately concerned, just get the work done
Yeah.
and earn the respect of your player base, whom, this particular issues, because it's compounded, it's important to them. So if you really care about your player base, just get the work done. Stop grandstanding and patting yourself on the damn back with, multiple arms, and just get the work done.
We got rid of spit. We did it, guys. Mission achieved.
Yeah.
Mission fixed. Absolutely.
Which people have been asking for that NPC to be removed for a long, long time anyway, and they just ignored it.
Yeah.
So it's sad. It really is.
Now we're a few minutes into the podcast, and I should probably give some thanks to all the support the podcast gets. WG Productions, Keelan, dropping the podcast legend membership over on Ginger Gaming Radio. Guys, if you follow the channel and you want to help support the podcast themselves, that is one way that you can do it. Also, thanks to Luke for his generous support and allowing the podcast to be broken up in MP3 formats directly. So if you guys are interested, you can actually subscribe to the podcast wherever podcasts are found. Search Epic Loot Radio, and it's the audio is brought to you as soon as it's done recording. So probably a little bit later today, once I'm done playing some Final Fantasy after this, y'all can see it. So again, WG and Keelan, thank you for being legends. You guys make it possible. The idea behind that is that essentially, rather than having kind of a big drive once a year to help cover the cost of the show, that it's like, if you guys want to just kind of help make that just kind of a sustainable thing, that's one option that you guys can do it. Now, Brendan is talking about here in chat right now saying, the only thing that worries me about the success of New World is the microtransactions, and the Pope. We'll just say the Pope himself, a big fan, Pope Francis, I don't know, says that if they monetize the Zoth, I'll be very disappointed. What do you think about the potential for microtransactions, and where do you draw the line? This also applies to Lost Ark.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've actually had this discussion with several other content creators, and it's all based off of your own personal definition concerning your game of choice, right?
Yeah.
So you've got your, there's only so many ways that you can actually earn money in an MMO. And let's face it, guys. I mean, the purpose of making a game is to ultimately make money. You have to make money. So the question is, okay, how are we going to do that?
You don't have to, but if you want to be, if you want to be around,
if you want to have food on the table and not be eating ramen noodles as some, stranger tosses you, you got to make money. So you have one of three models: subscription, like Final Fantasy 14,
and those aren't coming back. Like,
right.
I don't see any MMO launching with this. I could see one launching with the subscription and a cash app, but I don't see just the sub only model existing.
Right. Well, and actually, let me recant on that. There's really actually 4 modes, because the ancient way of doing things was subscription as well as the box purchase. World of Warcraft did that, and so did Final Fantasy 14. There was the initial cost, and the way things have eventually progressed. Like, I remember, and you probably, I know you remember, Brian. 15, 20 years ago, whenever they the free to play stuff started to creep up, it was frowned upon. They were always considered grinders and pay to win and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So you've got the box purchase, and eventually the one who really broke the mold on the traditional MMO really was NCSoft with Guild Wars.
Yeah.
You purchased Guild Wars, and that was it. It was free to play after that. It was fantastic, and it was well received, and everybody took note of that. And then from then on, the model was never the same. So then you have free to play, which we've already discussed. And then, of course, you've got your strictly microtransactions. So the biggest point is that depending on which mode you have, your definition of pay to win is also going to change. Because here's the fact of the matter. The term of whale then becomes a factor. And
yeah.
The one thing that is synonymous with whale is, of course, pay to win. Those two terms go hand in hand simply because, and here's the fact of the matter, you're either going to be a whale of money or you're going to be a whale of time. You either have a lot of time and you don't have to spend any money to progress or, secure any gear that you might not have time to acquire. You know, you might be hell, you might be a surgeon and you work 120 hours a week and you have all kinds of money and you can just throw all this money to so that way you can have fun with the game and have an engagement with that game the way you want to. But then there's the other side of the coin. You might be a 17-year-old living at home. You know, maybe you're not in school or maybe you're transitioning from high school into college and you have all the time in the world, but you don't have much money. So either way, you're paying to win in some aspect. You're either paying with your time or you're paying with your money. The biggest issue is that depending on what MMO you're playing, you have to have a bar set. And that bar is always going to be fluctuating depending on what model, you know, for monetization that game has.
Mhm.
And that's one of the biggest scrutinies that Lost Ark has had here lately is that, you know, it's a free to play game. You don't really you don't have to buy it. You know, you just download it and then they have their microtransaction shop. But once again, they're in the business to make money. So how do you suspect that they're going to make money if they don't have microtransactions? But the biggest scrutiny comes is that there's nothing requiring you to dump money into the game to progress. You can play the game and you can play the entirety of the game without dropping a single dime on the game. You know, I've been playing the Russian version. I progressed from level 1 to 50 and haven't spent a single dime. And I don't plan on spending a single dime on the game, except of course for my VPN, of you know, to
Right.
actually be able to play it. But you know,
Mhm.
I haven't actually donated any of my money. I've only donated time to the game. So, you know, it's all a matter of setting that bar and recognizing that definition. But one way or another, no matter which way you slice it, you're either a whale of time or you're a whale of money. It's just a matter of determining which one you are.
That's where it's interesting in terms of the MMO as just a concept, right? Because MMOs, especially MMORPGs, are more than just a game, right? Like they're a
Mhm.
community, they're a service, they're the game obviously aspect of it. And when it looks down, like when I look at it, it's that I see chat over here, Galaxy saying the number one thing needs to be making a great game. And then I think the money follows. I think that's one of the things we have seen proven time and time again, but it's risky, right? Because if you don't make a great game, then there isn't going to be money to be made. But I think if you end up making
Right.
a great game, if you as a community, like as the community aspect, where Final Fantasy 14 is I think a shining example of this, especially from a company that isn't necessarily native English speaking with Square Enix, right? But I feel
Mhm.
like we get communicated to. I feel like we're not talked down. We're heard and we're listened. And even if we don't like the answer that Yoshi P gives, he explains it in such a way that really helps, like it helps make sense of it. Like, okay, I understand why they came to that conclusion. I might not particularly like that specific conclusion, but it's not that there's no answer. I'm not relying on, you know, social media interpretations of Square Enix's actions and then inferring, you know, X, Y, and Z. So there's a big aspect of that. I think that goes hand in hand with monetization.
Yeah.
I've said this numerous times. I think monetization is a message or a relationship based off of trust.
Mhm.
Because if I hand you money, I trust that, you know, like that I'm going to get more of the things that I like.
Right.
And, you know, like when it comes down to, I think the model going forward is the buy to play model with the cash shop. I think that's going to be the predeterminate model that ends up making the most sense
Mhm.
overall. I could see optional subscriptions coming into these as well, but when I think about it, I think one of the things a lot of the conversation doesn't necessarily highlight is the overall shift in market culture when it comes to gaming, right? You and
Right.
I both have jobs. We've, you know, we're both married. We have, you know, I have kids. I believe you have kids, right?
Mhm. 4.
All right. So yeah, I definitely am the better dad here with 5. um,
One extra time, Brian. One extra time.
I got more diapers in you know, I'm my diaper high score. So yeah, Dadcast confirmed. I think though that when we look at the gaming culture though, is that MMOs aren't competing against nothing. When the first MMOs came out, they're really like they were. You had you know Ultima Online, Final Fantasy 11,
Yeah, and
WoW,
they were for the
eventually
hyper
EverQuest,
nerds.
and like it didn't. They were also very sandbox, so it didn't
Mhm.
require this constant feed of content.
Right.
WoW, I think, kind of broke the mold, but also trained people to expect this
Mhm.
hyper focus, and the money was there,
Yeah.
so the content was there. But as things have progressed and time has progressed, the gamers of the next generation aren't being trained on subscription based games. They're being trained on free to play, and now they're
Right.
coming into the high school years. Some of them probably in their early college years, maybe. And it doesn't necessarily make sense for them who their entire life have played, like, yeah, maybe you bought Minecraft, but it's like you've played these games and there has not been this massive extra cost that's
Right.
associated with it. And then as an MMO, a big part of it is like, are we getting in new blood, or does the face of the MMORPG continue to look like a man in his 30s, and then a man in his 40s, and then a man in his 50s, or a
Mhm.
woman? You can, it's equal opportunity here. Men and women love the genre. But if you're not getting in the 20s and you're not getting in, like maybe in the teens, at some point people are going to be like, what are you talking about? Why am I spending money on what do you mean I have to pay every month for this game? I pay
Right.
every month for Game Pass. That's my subscription, and that's where I'm going to go with it. So I think the genre has to evolve monetarily.
Right.
There are some risks, and that's going to be based off of trust. Because like even talking about like back to the Pope saying if they start charging for Azoth in New World, that's going to be a big disappointment. I think it's going to be a big disappointment, but I don't. I can't sit here and say that they won't. I can sit here and say that I hope that as a conversation with the developers that we sit here and say, here's where the line is, and that's going to vary by gamer,
Mhm.
ultimately. Where's your line? Where is your line that you're going to feel either happy to support or you're going to feel ripped off?
So my very first real adoption of microtransactions was actually with a third-person MOBA called Paragon, which was brought out by Epic Games,
Did
and it
that
was
come out?
well, they actually discontinued it, and
Okay.
what happened was is they had all their money set on it, and they were planning on staging it for esports, and
Mm.
well, actually, I could do a whole video on this whole thing, but long story short and short story long, they ended up pulling the whole development team off of Paragon, and they put it all onto an indie company who is making a survival game called Fortnite Save the World. And Fortnite Save the World ended up uh, amassing a huge following who were begging for a battle royale game. So what they ended up doing was is they said, "Hey, go ahead and put a battle royale in there and run with it and see what happens." And that's why you got the Fortnite that you have today. So a little
Yeah.
history lesson there. But my very first bout with microtransactions was actually with Paragon because they offered skins for your characters. And anybody who has played a MOBA knows that you have a set amount of heroes and you play that hero. And a lot of times you end up maining one hero only, or at least maining it most of the time. So eventually you get tired of staring at the behind of the same character all the time. So you want to buy a skin. You want to support the game, so you toss $10 and you buy their in-game currency, and you can buy like a new emote or a skin, just like what Fortnite does today, right? And they're known for it, they're famous for it, and they made $4.3 billion their first year of Fortnite. $4.3 billion off of microtransactions, and sold nothing but skins and emotes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, and it doesn't alter the gameplay. It doesn't affect anybody at all, except it makes other people's pockets a little bit lighter. So
Well, there's other things going on though. Like, and
sure.
we should acknowledge that. For those of you who don't know, like kids get bullied, and one of
Mhm.
the terms that they got, some of these kids have been called is default. Like, if
Yeah.
you haven't spent money on this game, then you're a default, and that's
Right.
like because like let kids have money. Like the
Mhm.
irony when I learned of that kids were bullying each other because they hadn't bought a certain skin in Fortnite, I go, I'm sorry, this is probably gonna sound racist, but I was like, "Dadgum, that sounds like a bunch of white kids to me, like a bunch of privileged white
Yeah.
children who have never had to work." Like, do you
Mhm.
know how to earn a dollar, child? Like, I don't think you do. You're
I agree.
spending your parents' money,
Yeah.
and like that was the first thought I had, and I
Mhm.
hopefully it's appropriate for me to say that because that's just where
Oh,
my
no,
brain went.
you're absolutely right. It is, that type of bullying is definitely a mark of privilege for sure. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And yeah, I was kind of in the same boat as you. I heard my oldest at the time, he kept saying, "Oh, he's a default. He's a default." I'm like,
Oh,
"What
your
is?"
kids actually
I
said,
was like,
"Oh man,
"What does that mean?" And he's like, "Oh, it's someone who uses a default skin." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I happened to look it up. I was like, okay, is there any more to this? Now, thankfully, my kids were not actually bullying anybody. They actually themselves, because they were so young, they didn't know the full gravity of what was being said.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, we're not saying that. I was like, let's not say that. Luckily my kids are very fortunate. My wife and I, we live a very comfortable lifestyle. So, my kids have never really been subjected to and exposed to, how should I say, anybody who is less privileged, because we try not to expose my kids to that. And at the same time, we also reinforce the fact of, hey, don't flaunt what you have because someone else might not be fortunate enough,
Yeah.
or just don't do it.
Have I ever told you my story?
I don't think so.
So when I was in high school, we lost everything. We almost lived under a bridge,
Mm,
and I am so thankful for that.
yeah,
Because I grew up like, and it was like wanting for nothing. I remember like, we're gonna go on a family trip. We gotta go on a plane. We gotta go spend this thing. And like, it was harder on my dad. Like I know for a fact, like he took it really hard, as I think I would, in that regards, because no matter what, you're gonna feel like I failed, etc. It's an interesting story. So like that's we don't need to get into it, but it's like it's such an interesting thing for me to experience. But having lost everything, been on food stamps and charity, having also been at the country club growing up, like it's like I've seen both sides of it, and
right.
for me, like I'm just glad that I've had both experiences, because I know what it's like to not eat, and I know what it's
Right.
like to go without. And my mom experienced that to even a greater degree than
Mm,
I ever. And like when I hear the stories of my mom's child, I go like she's iron. She's an iron woman. Anyway,
that's
it's
pretty
just
awesome.
like, yeah, so it's like, yeah, I'm
Yeah, I'm right with you. I know what it was like. I grew up poor.
yeah,
I too know what it was like. I growing up, I think I had like two, maybe if I was lucky, two sets of footy pajamas. Other than that, I wore my sister's t-shirts.
yeah.
They were long nighties. Basically, and we lived in man, it wasn't even a 500 square foot 2-bedroom house, and we had 4 kids. Living in the house. I shared the bunk bed with my brother or my sister. From time to time. But it was funny. Things were different back in those days too. You might not even been fully aware that you were poor. You probably recognized that you lost a lot of things and stuff like that. But like myself, I never even realized that we were poor to a certain extent up until maybe I got older. But
I
it was
was
one of
I
those
was
things.
aware from like the stress that my mom communicated to me,
Mm,
because I was the oldest in that regards. For me though, and like it was real critical, was like you just find the good in all the, and like you have to make a mental choice. It's like kind of trying
right.
to even remap you how you think, because it's like,
Absolutely.
well, you know what, things are hitting the fan. What's the good that I can find? So we ended up thankfully not living under a bridge. My mom, like it was
Yeah.
pretty tight. Like we didn't know where we were going, and my mom was able to locate a place for us to stay, and so we moved into like a trailer park. We didn't own anything, and it had air conditioning.
Big luxury. Especially back in those days. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Texas, it's like I was like, we got air conditioning. What do we
Right.
have to worry about?
Right.
You know, and it was like, and it's through that experience. Like it's funny when I hear these kids complain. And
Hmm.
it's like honestly, my kids aren't like Maddie, like so like back, and this is all this is a long ass microtransactions conversation. So we're sitting here, and it's like I would rather spend $40 on a game rather than hand my girl my phone, my daughter, and she played like this free to play game that she like, okay, download it, and I was like, okay, it's like you build a fort and whatever, and then it constantly is asking her for money.
Hmm.
And I'm like, is there an option on this game that I can just send you? Because she likes it. And I'm like, what? Like, I always weigh, should I do this? Should I, well, okay, it's her birthday, or okay, no, we're
Right.
not going to, sometimes to say no, sometimes it's okay to say yes. Is there an option that I can just give this game $40 and it never asks her for money again? Like what? And then that they don't do that. There's not an option for that. So then as a parent, I go, I'm deleting that application because I don't need her and these games to wire their brains in a way that is how they get trained. That's the expectation. I'll just go, here's a Switch, here's Mario Kart. They're not going to ask you for money. And if it does, I'm going to get pissed. So like, I think there is this microtransaction concern that I have. And I think that's how the generations have been, that are coming to replace us have been raised.
Yeah.
And so
the
there's some
evolution of
concern
the
there.
social norm. Yeah. The evolution of the social norm. It's a very real thing. And unfortunately, there's nothing that we're going to be able to do to stop it either.
Well, like
Yeah.
outside of this house, then yeah, like like the only thing I've said, because I've had the gamers come in. I don't know if they've come into your comments, but like, you're supporting games that support microtransactions. Henceforth, you support microtransactions, and microtransactions are evil. It's like,
Yeah.
well, like there's a lot of gray and nuance and areas in that conversation. But do my kids play microtransactions games? No. Do I think it's important that I have a working knowledge of those games? Absolutely. And when it comes to New World, if it feels like a game that goes through your pockets all the time, it's probably not going to be a game you hear me talk about.
Right.
At some point, like there's going to, like, if they start sitting here and like, oh, we're dancing on this line of what's appropriate and what's not, that's fine. But I think there's still methods in which that they can make money, and that the players can be rewarded and feel good, and everybody wins. And I think that's a conversation about trust and relationship. And thank you, Mystera, for the support. That's unnecessary and so I'm so thankful. It's mind-boggling.
So with that being said, Brian, what's your opinion on cosmetics for microtransactions?
So I think cosmetics should be earned in game. I think that they should be earned in game. And here's the hope that I have for the future. I think that you should never be able to purchase cosmetics outright. I think I would be fine with purchasing like a cosmetic quest line, right? So there's content that goes along with the reward. So the reward is not this instant gratification, right? The thing is like, oh, I'm not going to show my credit card in screen. I just bought some random person, whatever my like cap is.
$1,000.
1,000. I don't know. I think that is probably my spending cap. My wife calls me if I spend more than $20.
My wife calls me if I spend zero.
Oh. So at the core of it, I would say that like I would like to see it as a relationship to content. Now there's a risk there. Why aren't there any quests in the game? All the good quests are tied behind the paywall. Like it's an easy thing to kind of take it one way or the other. I just think that I would like, for example, the Halo Infinite Battle Pass has said, they're coming out with Battle Passes. Makes sense, right? The Battle Pass is the evolution of the loot box. Only you can see what you get. The problem with the Battle Pass is that the FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. Like, I got to do this so that I, either get my money back or I get the rewards that I want.
Right.
And there's a time thing on that. As an adult, as a parent, like that is a system that I didn't like Majora's Mask because there's a clock on it. I for some reason Mario's fine because there's a level, the timer on a dungeon in Final Fantasy 14, completely fine. But overall, like the game system driving you to do something, getting something done. So no, same problem I have with Destiny. Halo says those things aren't going to expire. And I go, oh, you mean I can go ahead and purchase the Battle Pass? Or in theory, being that they don't expire, they could sell me a bundle of the Battle Passes. Let's say I come into Halo 2 years later and I want to say, hey, what have I missed? And they're like, oh, here's all this stuff that you can go and opt in. You set which Battle Pass you want to grind on, and then you grind that Battle Pass, and here's the reward track. So it works on my schedule and not on their schedule. Ding. So like New World's talked about having a Battle Pass. I go, that's great. That I have no problem with that. But also look what Halo's doing. Don't put a timer on that Battle Pass.
Yeah,
because that's
Battle Pass and you can work on it when you want. Yeah.
Work on it when you want. It's a grinding game. It's an RPG. Like, I might feel like honestly, I think at the end of the day, like, because I don't think Destiny's Battle Pass is a hard grind at all, but it's just for the fact that it expires. I go, F this noise.
Right.
But if it didn't, I knocked it out in 2 weeks because I'm not sitting here afraid of it. I'm not sitting here going like, oh God, if we have another baby, I know I'm going to get off the train. Right. It's like, and so it's the same kind of thing with this. What do you think? Well, like, what would be the best system for you?
I mean, I actually really like that. I mean, coming from the Final Fantasy 11 days, Final Fantasy 11 was my real first MMO. I played EverQuest 2 a little bit, because up until then, it was like Age of Empires was really the only PC game that I had really played at that time. Of course, other than Oregon Trail. And for those of you who are young, I'm sorry you don't know what that is. You really missed out. But
Yeah, if you really want to have gamer like as a part of your identity, you got to go play some Oregon Trail.
But I miss the old days. Because I mean, you played Final Fantasy 11
Yeah, still do.
when you had Kirin's Asode and you went through town of like Juno. You were the shit. Like people knew that you cleared the hardest content available at the time in Sky up until of course C was released. But people knew it's like, oh, that guy's a badass,
Yeah.
And a lot of MMOs, and really not even just MMOs, but a lot of games in general have missed that mystique. They've completely subjugated that and have taken that sense of pride away. And I think ultimately that feeds into a lot of the reasons why games die out as quickly as they do. Ion, the Tower of Eternity was another MMO that I spent a lot of time in. And there was a lot of, exclusivity to certain things in that game as well. But it was, for me, like the beginning of point of where things really started to transition away from, hey, I did this and I earned this. This is why I look as badass as I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I like that idea. I didn't even realize that they were doing that with the battle pass.
Well,
That's a fantastic idea.
They have Halo is doing this,
Right,
so
right,
that's why
right.
I really hope that everybody else pays attention. Like if Destiny does that, that's gonna be great as well. The problem that I run into is that as I've always kind of been a two games at the same time. So for the longest time, it's been Destiny 2 and or Destiny 2 and Final Fantasy 14. And with New World, honestly, I could see New World easily becoming my PvP game, where Final Fantasy is my PvE game. And it's like I would love Final Fantasy 14 to step up in PvP content. We know changes are coming with Endwalker, great. But like, oh well, New World's hella fun. I just been running PvP all day. Like I literally keep my PvP flag on all the time. And that's just how I play. It's like, all right, it's a little risky. It's kind of fun. It's kind of dangerous. Am I going to die?
Right.
Probably. But I might have a moment, I'm good at PvP. I'm good at games. The Tim A saying, if I have another kid, I need to hire a maid named Alice. I would do better. I would do better with the maid concept if it was the robot from the Jetsons.
Yeah, right.
Because hands down, I don't know any married people out there, but talking about hiring somebody to come into the house, like my mom, like back, tying this all together, back when we had money as a kid, before we lost everything, we had a maid. And I remember distinctly that we would clean up for the maid because apparently we'd be judged by the maid or something. It was like, wait, didn't we hire somebody to do this? So I'm very happy that I've been on both sides of, of life experience of abundance and extreme, not enough. But if robots come in, and that becomes a thing, yeah, absolutely. Like that'd be wonderful. We'll have to go from there. But yeah, Battle Pass. I hope Halo changes it. I hope everybody else goes, that's the model. We got there. Because the loot boxes were fine until they weren't, right?
Right.
Nobody really complained about them. People would be like, all right. They were cheap. You never know what you were going to get. And they made crazy money. And then EA took it too far, as EA does, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it was the combination of EA and Star Wars together that really kind of said, this is bad. But then the Battle Pass kind of came the model, and it had the FOMO, which really benefits the people who have too much time. It's that try to get people to spend time or money. But either way, you're making bank, right? But I think with Halo, it has to be free. That's like, at the end of the day, like these games are competing against games that are free.
Right.
So
like Warzone.
Right. Yeah. Like, oh, you want Halo to be a thing and you're going to charge money for it and you're only going to be on one platform. Thankfully, Infinity is changing that narrative. And I hope that everybody else kind of picks that up. And then the fact that New World's talked about battle passes as part of their discussion, because they're still trying to like find what that, that communication is.
Mm-hmm.
Are you afraid though? Because like we've talked a lot, this has been a heavily microtransaction focused, conversation, but I see a lot of fear in when people bring that question up. Are you afraid of Amazon stepping over that line and making this a whale hunter style MMO?
I think my biggest fear is them not using their head strategically. Because let's face it, they haven't had the greatest history with game launches right now.
Yeah.
They really haven't. They canned Crucible because it failed. They canned the Lord of the Rings game because they just simply couldn't see eye to eye with the other company. And they were kind of, throwing pies and this, that, and the other. So that doesn't stand well, and it doesn't bode well for their communication ability either. So it's interesting because I almost feel like their underwriting of Lost Ark was a very, very smart strategic move because it allows them to generate revenue from the gaming industry whilst also primarily publishing their own game. And if they're going to succeed, they need to take notes from Yoshi P. Definitely. Because that man, I was there on ground zero with Final Fantasy 14 1.0.
Yeah. That letter he wrote to us on New Year's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was part of the closed alpha test of Final Fantasy 14 1.0. I said then, and mind you, I had 3.5 years of actual playtime in Final Fantasy 11. So Final Fantasy 14 was something I was really looking forward to for years.
Mm-hmm.
I came out of that alpha and I immediately told my buddies, I said, don't even get excited. Because I said, this game is going to be terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like, how could you say that? I'm like, trust me, it's going to be bad. And it was. It was dog doo-doo. It was absolute dog doo-doo. It blew my mind that they were so arrogant to think that they could pawn that garbage off onto the fan base. It's like, what year did that come out? I don't even remember what year that came out. But I remember thinking
2010.
Yeah, 2010. I remember thinking they had better games in 2001.
Yeah.
Like, it was unbelievable. So for the fact that Yoshi P, and I mean, you can't tip too many hats to that guy, and you certainly can't tip not enough hats to that guy. I mean, he had a mammoth, the Mount Everest of undertakings, and really the story of Final Fantasy 14 in general is like probably the biggest Cinderella story of our time, as far as MMOs go, or any game for that matter, any game. He did what everybody thought was going to be completely impossible. So if they're smart, they will look and see what he's done with Final Fantasy 14.
Yep.
And then they are also going to be paying, and which I guarantee you they are, very, very close attention to the whole Blizzard Activision debacle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The whole world is watching that. Anybody who is, even minorly tippy-toeing around the gaming segment of YouTube right now, I guarantee is getting something popped up on their screen about Blizzard Activision. I guarantee it.
Right.
So those two elements, it's funny because really they couldn't have happened at a better time for Amazon.
Ooh, I know. Right?
So the timing is absolutely impeccable. It's all a matter is if they're smart enough to seize the information that's there, and as you eloquently put, just not suck.
Yeah.
That's it.
Here's why I'm not afraid. If they mess it up, there's other great games out there. It's gonna suck because it's like I think when people look at an MMO, they want a community, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. But communities go beyond a single game anymore, especially with Discord and heck, content creation, right? But like at the end of the day, I'm $40 in. Okay. Do I get a year out of that? Do I get 5 years out of that? Now, the longer that goes, the more invested in the game I am. Yeah, the harder that's going to be. However, if they're following the Yoshi P model and, building that trust, like that's a conversation, right? Hey, we're thinking about doing X. Oh, when we think about it, this is how we think it's going to go and it's not going to be good. Okay, well, we're going to change it. How about this? Like that's what I'm looking for in a game. And that's what I'm getting from Amazon. Up to
Mhm.
this point, I feel like they have been listening, they've been communicating, and they've been able to make adjustments and changes. Obviously, this is an alpha, right? Now we're in beta, so it's like, okay, cool. Like, here's where we're going. That's why I'm not afraid of investing in New World. That can always change. It could change with anything. We've gone through that change with 14 already and came out
Right.
better for it in that regards. And so I think that's kind of the core aspect. My ideal model for them, for Amazon, for New World. Here's what would make me the happiest of a gamer when it comes to New World. A yearly expansion model. Every year, new expansion. It doesn't have to be the biggest, boldest, statement. New expansion once a year. Then between that, every 3 months, you're looking at, it could be 3 to 4 months. So you think about kind of 4 big updates
Mhm.
with the kind of the expansion. You have kind of the bigger update. You have a battle pass, etc. So you sell those. So you're getting additional revenue. And you can also have your cosmetics the way they've got it. Purely cosmetic based, right? The way they've got it. No pay for speed, no pay for travel, no pay for like there's nothing that I can spend money on that gives me an advantage over anybody else in the game. Because
Right.
that means there's nothing that anybody else can outspend me on. I'm
Right.
not a wealthy man. Like we're doing okay. But yeah,
Yeah.
like I got bills and there's a budget and it feels like every month we're just right on that line. Like, oh man, we spend too much money. Okay, what do we gotta cut from this? And adulting is real. But like as long as nobody can outspend me, I'm not gonna ever outspend anybody. Then I think there's that balance, right? So then if I choose to opt into the battle passes, I think honestly what you do is that you have the expansion and then you have the bigger version of the expansion, which includes your seasonal battle passes for the year, right?
Mhm.
And then you just do that. Boom, boom, boom. You pay for your content, you pay and then yeah, if you want to support the game in other ways, I saw a really kick ass looking rabbit that you can buy as a housing furnishing and somebody put it outside their house. And I was like, that's really cool. I don't think that the game needs to be, I would say like 10% of the cool stuff could be in the cash shop as long as 90% of the cool stuff is in the game.
Right.
And you have that model, and it's like, I'm happy to play. I'm happy to support. This is great. I'm really glad I got a podcast that talks a lot about New World. Like absolutely. This is fun. And that's the ideal model that I think. And if they can hit that, I think that's important because I think the first real litmus test for New World is that first update. When is
Absolutely.
it? What does it include? And my personal hope is that it would be really cool if they introduced a new weapon in one of those updates.
Mhm.
Because then all of a sudden it's like for the people who are hardcore grinding, they're like, I got all the skills, I'm level capped. It's November. And then it's like, oh, but do you have a great sword? What?
Right. That's
Like,
exactly
okay.
what I was kind of surprised. I was actually really surprised that they didn't have greatsword in there as one of the basic weapons. I was like, that's kind of interesting.
Some people have it rumored to come out at launch, and I honestly just say like, just deliver a smooth experience, and then outside
Worry
of
about that.
launch, do that with the first big update because
Yeah.
there's plenty of things for people to do for the first 4 months, outside, and then the war stuff will carry over and player
Right.
driven, experiences will drive people forward. But then all of a sudden it's like, yo, new weapon. Whoa, I don't think they need to deliver a new weapon with every update, but I think that will be something that's exciting because all of a sudden it's like, oh, I always won the great sword.
Mhm.
Oh, what's the next weapon they're gonna offer? And they're already got Twitch integration. I think there's some really interesting moving things that are happening, and a
Yeah.
lot of the things that I think New World will capitalize on is as the game speaks to those who don't enjoy Final Fantasy 14 because they exist. Like
Absolutely.
they're not wrong. There's not like if you like the game, you don't like the game, like that's great. Like as long as you've tried it and you've formed your own opinion, like I don't like this game because so and so reviewer said it was awful. Okay. That means nothing to me. Like go on, move along, you random
Right.
person. But forming that I think is important. That's all I've got. It's been a huge microtransaction. What weapons would you like to see added to New World?
Honestly, the greatsword was one of them. I thought that would be pretty interesting, but also dual pistols, I think would be really neat. Yeah, absolutely. Dual pistols. Dual pistols, I think, would be a great addition. So they could do a lot of interesting things with that. Some sort of ranged assassin type of deal. I think that'd be really neat.
Chat saying great sword time for Christmas. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Timmy says, "Hello Games with MMS is another comeback story. They pulled away from the individual corporate money, caused it worked with the fans instead, and working with the fans for the win. I like your fans are the biggest, I think, driver of it, right? Like,
absolutely.
You respect them, you deliver great content. I think for the majority of gamers, they recognize like, oh, you like this, you want more of this. Like, there's a cost to this, and they're happy to support. Same thing with why am I drawing like Warframe?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like
Huge
that's been
changes with that game. It's nowhere near the same game it used to be whenever it first launched.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'd like to see a mace. Like the Great Axe, I think would be really cool. I want to see more magical weapons as well. So I would like to see something like that. It'd be kind of neat to see a close ranged, like if they had like a magical mace weapon, so that it's kind of a blunt damage up
Or
close,
even a
but also
flail.
spells. A
Flail
flail
would
would be cool.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Chakras, just like wow, like you just start going down the list. Like there's a lot of different weapons and magic stuff that they can plan, and already like the fact that you carry two weapons, you can have some pretty interesting builds. You can slot in gems to really kind of change how stats impact your weapon, so you can really like truly build out any kind of class or any kind of role that you want. Barding weapons, like instead of like if you who knows, man.
Yeah,
I
like
think
a
it's
loot or something.
yeah, loot, harp.
harp.
Yeah, like it's like at the end of the day, like this is gonna be interesting. I personally am excited. I think it's gonna be it's gonna be neat to see as this MMO launches, because there's gonna be some really stark contrasts to the 12-year-old, the 15-year-old MMO out there. There's gonna be challenges. So talk to me more about your coverage of Lost Ark. What is your content plan for that? And go ahead and plug and promote yourself any way you want.
So, with Lost Ark, obviously I'm playing the Russian edition. And actually, because of what happened to me in New World, I didn't tell you about that, did I? So, I've been conducting Sunday morning streams. I've been streaming every Sunday morning, usually starting around like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I went to stream New World. Got about, I think it was like 14 minutes and 31 seconds in. And I was like, oh, hey, it's going good, going good. Boom. my whole computer just shut off.
Yeah.
Just shut completely down. I was like, oh no. Oh my God. I thought I fried my computer. Like literally, I thought my graphics card, I thought I blew up. I couldn't get it to turn back on. I tried for probably 5 minutes to turn it back on. It would not turn on. Eventually, I just had to unplug it and let it set. And I let it set for probably, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, then plugged it back in, and then finally it powered back up. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing that again. So I actually haven't touched New World since.
Yeah, I wouldn't after that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I went ahead, and I mean, I've had plans to buy another computer anyway. So I just ordered a brand spanking new custom built from Origin PC. So I've got a 39, what is it? A 3090. Jesus, I can't talk. 3090 in there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, along with a ATI 5950X. So I just dropped
a lot of money. Yeah.
I just dropped that on there. So I'm going to dual PC setups. That way I can game on my dedicated PC and then stream with the one that I have now. So that way, if my game crashes or does something funky, my stream will stay up. I don't have to worry about it. But, as far as the direction with Lost Ark, I'm hoping that I'll be able to cover New World as well as Lost Ark. That's the direction I want to go with that.
Those are some two good games. Like having played Lost Ark, the only thing that has had me pause because I've played it, I'm like, okay, it might be just a game I enjoy, not necessarily cover. I will have to wait and see if I get the like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like play. But I'm like, I know right now from a timing perspective, November 19th is not that far away.
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah,
all right.
mainly I've just been focusing on streaming it more than anything. Because right now with the Russian version, it's like I can't really say anything that hasn't really already been said, and really, it's kind of hard to pick apart anything that is truly going on because obviously it's a pretty loose English patch, so you don't know exactly how accurate
Yeah,
the information really is. And I mean, it's obvious that some of those translations are like, I don't think that's necessarily what she's saying, but
right.
it's still fun. The grind is fun. The mechanics are great. That's one thing I will say about Lost Ark is that the mechanics of the fights are absolutely amazing. And the only reason where they can do that is because it is isometric.
Yeah.
And as of the last trade show where they were going over the next big update for the game was that their art team and just their development team, they have been soaking in tons and tons of time in turning Lost Ark around a new corner. They're looking to do something so ambitious with the next raid that really hasn't been done in the genre before. The phases that they have in raids right now usually are 3 distinct phases, and a lot of these phases, like, I think the 2 upper raids, like, they're like 45 minutes a phase for 3 phases,
Mm,
and no one's really attempting them because they're so damn hard. So they're
yeah.
toning that back a little bit, but they've introduced the save point system where whenever you clear one phase, then you can come back to it later. Kind of like what the Bahamut raids were, in Final Fantasy 14. The
Okay.
Binding Coil,
Yeah.
something like that. But the next raid that they're doing, that they're going to be introducing with this next big patch, it's like 6 distinct phases. So it could take you like a whole week to get through the whole raid.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty interesting. But if anybody's never really seen what a raid looks like with Lost Ark is just it's so bizarre, really,
Okay.
how they do it. It's isometric at first, but
Yeah.
their cutscenes are like you're watching something out of Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, I
Like
know.
it's insane. It's absolutely gorgeous. And
Yeah.
the way they seamlessly transition from the isometric point of view over to that, cutscene point of view where it's cinematic and it just looks amazing. And like I can't tell you how many times I've been on live stream and it's like, whoa, okay, that's a big ass dragon, or something to
Mhm.
that, that level of detail. It's just absolutely amazing to me. But they can do a lot of that stuff and they can push that envelope because it does have an isometric point of view. So it doesn't have to render all these extra polygons and so forth like World of Warcraft or Final
Yeah.
Fantasy 14 does. So it's really interesting to see what they're going to do. And I think they're poised to secure a pretty good spot. It may be a niche spot because obviously the isometric point of view isn't for everybody, for sure. But I think they're going to have a pretty solid following here in the United States. And in my opinion, I think they're going to be a really big contender for the, one of the top 3 spots for MMOs in the United
Yeah.
States.
I like that it supports the controller right out the gate. So I
Yeah,
played
I
it
love
on
it.
controller, and it was like in for the Korean version. I was like, yes, this is excellent.
Mhm.
Feels
It
good.
feels great.
Feels great. And so I'm really pleased with that. I'm excited the fact that you're right. I think it's a good play by Amazon to be kind of the distributor publisher. I think also, especially when them testing out Amazon game, the cloud services, that's one of
Mhm.
the things I've been really impressed by. They've had issues during a beta. A lot of that is for them to identify that, but overall, my experience has been very, very smooth. So
Yeah.
if they can launch, here's the thing. Here's my final thought, and then I want you to promote the crap out of your streams and your channel. Is if they can launch and have a smooth launch, in my mind, that would be the first MMO to launch, first game as a service launch without massive catastrophe. That would set a new bar. Typically, the response that I see online is, "Well, it is the first week.
Yeah.
It usually takes about a week.
Yeah.
And then it gets fixed." But if any companies to come out and do it and have it smooth, like that's almost a huge statement to Amazon gaming studios as well. And even Yoshi P talked about looking at virtualizing, going to the cloud with some of their
Right.
servers. So I think namely Final Fantasy 11 was the point of
I
interest.
I
But
think I think so. I think you're right about that.
imagine that, like, whether they team up with Microsoft, Google, or Amazon, that's probably those are going to be your choices. And to sit here and say, like, hey
Oh, sure.
guys, like we launched a full on MMO in our cloud and it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting to see. Yeah, and that's gonna open up a whole realm of possibility to, a whole sector of gamers who can't afford, top end gaming PCs or anything like that. You know, if they want to tap into it on their phone, they could tap into it on their phone. I mean, hell, phones these days, oh my God, they're so powerful. It's ridiculous. You know, they're more powerful than what the computers were on the space shuttle by a mile.
100%, man. 100%. Absolutely. So, Johnny, where can people find you?
So I usually stream on Twitch and YouTube. I'm non-partnered, but I'm on the road to affiliate, and actually I'm very, very, very close to affiliate. So if you want to follow me on Twitch, just search up Johnny Mac Games. It's Johnny Johny, and then Mac and then Games, just like it is here. And also you can follow me on my YouTube channel if you prefer to have YouTube as your platform of choice. I know a lot of people do. And I do publish videos over there on the various games. I'm kind of a variety YouTuber, right, Brian? I think whenever you found me, I was covering Godfall almost exclusively at the time. But you know, I've branched out and so forth because
you just got to play where your passion's at. You just got to play with the passion.
Yeah. Absolutely. So absolutely adore video games just like you do. You know, absolutely love video games.
Too much, maybe.
So, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I try to upload as much as I can. I don't do a whole lot of opinion pieces because you know what they say about opinions. So especially trying to grow my channel, I try not to upset too many people.
I don't know, like opinion. I always kind of say like, I'm sure I'm gonna lose some subscribers on this one, but if I'm passionate about the opinion, I feel like you got to share it. The one opinion I didn't share was on Crucible, which was the Amazon's game they launched and then unlaunched last year, and I was like, this game is garbage. And I was like, I try not to be like hateful or like oh, this this is the worst. I always try to find like an opinion, like both sides of it, and I know that does drive people up the wall because they're like, oh, Brian, yeah, you suck, it's like if you listen to what I say, I think you actually like sometimes the thing that the comments that always make me laugh are the ones that are agreeing with me, but they're just agreeing angrily, I guess, or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know if like maybe I could have said that better. But yeah, like if you want to share it, like that's where it's like, I think it's important to share opinions, but at the same time it's like I know that I definitely don't fall within the wheelhouse of the common or the majority thought, or at least the majority of vocal people on the internet, in that regards, especially when it comes to gaming. What do you mean you're not like horribly anti-MTX, Brian? Like, I think there's a conversation there. I think there's a space where this exists and everybody wins, but it's, you got to kind of find that spot. And it's like, we're not there yet. I think we're getting close and we'll have to wait and see.
Especially when the potential for making money is there, to the degree that it is. It makes it difficult.
It really does because, you're like, well, I mean, especially with public traded companies, like they're beholden to the stockholder. And then you get some CFO minded person. And I talk bad about CFOs pretty often. My dad was a CFO. I love my dad. It's not that anything against him, but him and he's the guy who kind of said this. He's like, son, like if you ever see a CFO take over a company, like you want to sell, you do not want to be involved with that company at all because they're going to start nickeling and diming.
Absolutely.
And they're going to also pull the funding from the thing that gives it value. Like, and that's usually what you see. Like, oh, what do you mean we can save this much money a year if we don't pay our support people? And then our support sucks, and then nobody can buy our product. And then, and it's like, da. So you see that, and it's just like, so it's like, that's where I kind
of feel like that's where Epic Games went. They used to not be like that. They used to focus on putting out a very quality product, with Unreal Engine, and then all of a sudden they start getting really CFO / corporate minded.
I think it's the CFO. Like CEO is the visionary. The CFO is like, and you need both because you can't go and spend $1 billion if you only have, 100,000.
Right.
Like you don't want to sit here and be like, oh man, we're way upside down. But and then at the same time you're like, okay, things are going great, and then you put that sometimes CEO steps down, CFO takes over for some reason, and it's like, that was fun while it lasted. All right, guys, that's gonna conclude for this podcast in the day. I do appreciate you, Johnny. Be sure to go follow him. His links will be in the description of these videos. Be sure to also message me. Make sure I got your Twitch link as well, so that hopefully you'll get that affiliate partner or that affiliate deal here pretty soon. Guys, that's going to wrap it up for Epic Loot Radio, episode 29. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the birthday wishes, by the way. It's been a fun week. I'm really happy that we got to sit down today, talk some video games, New World and Lost Ark. We'll have to get Johnny back on. Thank you, everybody. You're awesome. Be legendary. We did it. Podcast complete.
Great podcast. A lot of fun.
That was fun. Sometimes it's like, especially in lieu of all the news and things that are just going wrong in the world. It's like,
oh yeah.
this is like I've literally like I've said my piece about Blizzard. It hasn't been, I was like, the news is only going to get worse. The news only has gotten worse.
Yep.
And I don't want to sit here and make that like what's the horrible thing we're going to talk about today on Ginger Prime. No.
Yeah.
Like, all right, guys. I was like, I know the views aren't going to be there because literally I look at my feed and it's like I get angry and I'm like, all right, I'm just not going to make a video today because I've said my piece. I've said my piece.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, that's why I haven't touched it with a mile. I was going to put out a video and I'm just like, no, no, I'm not touching any of that. And I'm actually kind of glad that I didn't, because, there was a lot more evidence and facts, well, suggested details anyway, that, came forth and just compounded the issue even more. And it's just like, oh my God, like you can't put videos out fast enough.
No, yeah, you're like, oh yeah. And then it's like, honestly, for the, like, I'm not a WoW guy. Like I also said, like, I was like, I unsubscribed from WoW a while back. I think that was like the right choice that I made. I'm really happy with that choice. And yeah, and I was like, great, I'm done. I'm not so impacted by it that I don't need it to make it like my level of drama. Like this, if it's not like Brian's been streaming World of Warcraft for 16 years and
right. Yeah, I can totally understand Osmond Gold, definitely having a having feelings about it for sure, especially considering that I couldn't even believe that they had not necessarily directly named him, but it was definitely obvious that they were talking about him. I'm just like, are you nuts? Like, what is your problem? Like, he's like your number one cash cow. Like, he's your biggest advocate, and you're going to alienate him by berating and downgrading him? Like, what is wrong with you?
Like, they're disconnected. Like, they don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's like when they've been on top of the hill, and it's like at some point they're like, yeah, nothing can touch us. And then, like, you don't have to. I'm not sitting here saying advocating that like you have to like all the different content creators around a certain game mindset, and individuals can easily be like, I like this or I don't like this, individual, right? Like, that's human nature. However, I think it's also like when Yoshi P is like, man, like the impact he already had on the 14 community, like you cannot sit here and deny that certain creators, certain people in the space have massive influence and massive power. And him breaking down that wall that he put up his own wall.
Oh yeah.
But he broke down that wall, and all of a sudden the floodgates are open, and all of a sudden, guess what? Final Fantasy 14 is an incredible game.
Yeah.
It's not some mediocre game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I played it for 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And I just don't have the time to dedicate to it like that, because I feel like I'm doing myself an injustice, because I feel like I can't experience everything.
Mistress dropping some funny truth here. They've got bad Wi-Fi. That's why they're so disconnected.
That's probably better. That's probably more true than you realize.
Well done.
They're probably spying on everybody's Wi-Fi connection anyway.
So the at the end of the day, like I was just like, I'm gonna try to put out some fun joy into the world this week. I talked with Chris about it. I was like, all right, man. We sat down with Hogue Law. We did a full hour, like with talking the legal ramifications and all that. And I was like,
I missed that one. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. I've been meaning to watch.
You can also listen to it on MP3.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start doing that too, because I try to catch all your streams and stuff, and it's just hard.
Man.
I've been so busy,
dude. You have like crushing it, man. Hopefully you get that promotion.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
Yeah, it'd definitely be good. It'd be good for my company. I want to make a lasting impression, on my company before, eventually I leave, because I'll obviously, as I want to migrate over into content creation as full-time career. So
you're a braver man than I am. You're a braver man than I am.
It's tough. That's why I'm working on a different aspect of my business model now.
Well, you're also doing it right, in that regards, because I've seen people is like, all right, I'm just going in. It's like, no, there's a lot of prep. There's a lot of work. Chris made the jump this year, and it's good, like, I'm excited. But I'm like, and people are like, would you do it? I was like, No, like, and I it'd be like, and someone's like, what would I talked to a guy and I was like, like, there's not a number. It's not even a mathematical number. It's not even a financial thing for me. Like, I love programming too much.
Right.
Like, I love building software. Now,
Mhm.
I would transition like we're nowhere. I'm thinking like, let's say, the channel Ginger Prime keeps growing, Worked Game keeps growing. Like, there's a point where maybe I take that programming and I work on a video game.
Yeah.
Like that's the transition. Like, oh no, like I don't like you might get an extra stream a week. It's like but I can't see myself ever doing that. Maybe the kids grown, if the kids are off in school
Yeah.
and on their own, like that becomes a different conversation. But
Right.
Elizabeth is 6 months old, so like in the span of what's a typical YouTuber's career, right? Like I don't know the numbers, like so I'm just like, yeah, at some point I think people are gonna be like, I don't like listening to that ginger, bearded green, I changed my beanie to a blue beanie. Who knows, what it is, and then all of a sudden nobody cares. It's like, all right, fine. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I got 18 years. Like after 18 years, like maybe there's a different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
and
I could
that's kind of
also
where I'm at
go
too,
ahead. Go
is,
ahead.
it's the kids. Yeah, that's a huge deal. That's one of the reasons why I didn't get into YouTube and streaming any earlier was because of kids. My kids were all young. I mean, for shoot, 4.5 years, I had two kids in diapers for a whole 4.5 years.
Yeah,
So, now that all my kids are getting ready to go, hop on the school bus and go to school and all that stuff, that
yeah.
leaves me with some more available time where I can actually dedicate myself to doing it. And, I've spent the past 2 years, trying to plan out my business model as well as I can and have tried to improve my skills as quickly as I possibly can. So that way, I actually know what the hell I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about. you know, and I mean, the amount of hours, oh my God, the amount of hours that I have soaked into and the amount of fighting that I've done with my wife over the amount of hours that I've soaked into, everything. It's pretty daunting, really. But but yeah, just like helping you with your audio setup,
Thanks, man. I
that
think
kind
I
of helped.
like the setup.
Yeah, your voice sounds good. It sounds like you've actually tweaked your EQ recently.
Not recently. I
No,
just been
just from
sick for like
before.
2 weeks.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
but
like, when I did the podcast, we had Lono on last week, and at
yeah,
the end of it, like
I
I ended
watched
up
a little
having
bit of
that
that.
coughing fit, and it ended up
Mhm.
straining my neck. Like I was like, these are just like my voice, yeah, feels like I'm speaking normal, but I was like, people are
Yeah,
like, you sound sick. I was like, I feel sick.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You sound good though. That Shure SM7B actually goes well. I thought it would go well with your voice. My voice would sound like absolute garbage on that microphone. I'm telling you right now, it would sound like absolute garbage. I would have to EQ the hell out of my voice to sound good because I've got one of those weird voices. Like mine
I was
is
gonna
mid.
say something, but I didn't think it was appropriate.
Yeah, mine is mid-tone, like mid-tone bassy, and
Yeah.
it's very hard to get the EQ right.
Okay.
So that's why I've settled on condenser microphone for me as the best choice because it picks up those tones better. Whereas the dynamic mic does not pick up those warm tones the same way. So it makes things a little difficult on
Yeah.
my end. But yeah, my voice would sound like garbage on, on that
If
microphone.
chat saying like I'll go graybeard Brian. Like when I get to that point, it's like honestly, I wouldn't mind that, but I would have to get the really good beard.
Yeah, the Santa
You know,
Claus beard.
like yes, like let's go. That would be really cool.
I could totally see that. You could do a Christmas special wearing a Santa Claus hat.
Ginger Santa Claus.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I do have the belly for it. Like halfway there.
Yeah,
I'm
there you
halfway
go.
there. Yeah,
There you go.
absolutely.
But yeah, helping you pick out I was super thrilled. Like my wife was like, she's like, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "Brian just asked me to help him with his audio." Like I immediately geeked out. I was so excited. And yeah, I mean, it kind of inspired me to push ahead, the next level of content that I plan on putting out. I'm working on some projects now, planning the content to, cater towards the beginning streamers and YouTubers and the intermediate streamers and
Yeah.
YouTubers to help, because there's just so much information out there and I've had to sift through it all. I've had
Yeah.
to sift through it all. And a lot of it, like 75% of it, really isn't helpful for me.
Right.
you know? And then it's funny because everybody gets this misconception, oh, I need to only watch the big streamers or the big YouTubers because they're the only ones that know anything and they're the only ones
I
that
literally was in a ninja stream and somebody asked him like how to grow, and he say and I am like not like a weird flex, but like I'm actually friends with Tyler,
Yeah.
but it's like he said this in live, and I'm like, that's the worst advice to tell anybody. in my in my opinion, I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
that's because he's like, yeah, it's pretty much a saturated market. There's no real point in getting started. I was like,
Yeah.
man,
I mean,
all right.
I mean, he's not wrong, but he's not right either. You
Yeah.
know, it is a very saturated market. You know, 2020 provided a very interesting, ground zero, so to speak. So many people lost their jobs and they started turning towards, alternative methods. Almost all of a sudden, there was like a 78% increase in people creating YouTube channels that year.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody and their brother decided, hey, I'm going to do YouTube, but they didn't really know how. And it's a great platform. YouTube's a fantastic platform for discoverability. And I mean, they amass over 4 billion views a day. Like it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So the whole saturated market thing, yeah, it's a true statement. But the thing is that there are so many potential views, even if you got a fraction of a percent, that's still a lot. Like that's still a lot.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot that you can do, to sit there and think, oh, well, this person has no potential to be as big a streamer or as big a YouTuber as Ninja or Nick Merckx or Tim the Tatman or any of them. Yes, they were in streaming at just the right time, and they even
grew
Tim
a
the
lot with
Tatman.
the platform. They grew
Yeah,
a lot with the
Tim
platform.
the Tatman himself said it very well, and that's one of the reasons why I liked him. Is he said, "Well, I was lucky," and which he was. He was lucky because he grew with the platform, like you said. So now it's all down to putting your own spin on things and just staying with it. I mean, really, if and I'm going to play towards your ego a little bit. I'm going to kind of stroke you a little bit. Is if
my
if
love
someone,
language is words of affirmation. So just be
yeah,
aware. I might
yeah,
fall in love with you right now.
yeah, mine too. Honestly, if someone would have told me a year ago that I would be sitting here having a podcast with the guy that I have been subscribed to since he had like 10,000 subs on YouTube, I'd have been like, "There's no way, no way." Because on my other account, my own personal account, I've been a sub of yours for quite a while. I think you
Thanks, man.
may have. I don't even think you had just a little over 9,000 subs at the time. And ever since that day, whenever we tweeted back and forth, you're like, "Hey, you have some content." I'm like, "Oh shit." I was flipping out, and it's been fantastic. And I have learned a lot by watching you, watching Chaos, and all
Mhm.
them. And it's nice knowing that I'm in a particular segment of content creation where I've met some really awesome people, and it's been fantastic. And so for someone to say, "Oh, well, it's an oversaturated market," that's a horrible disservice. That's a horrible disservice. Everybody
Right.
has a spot. Now, do you have the potential to blow up and become like Ninja himself? Well, that's like the top 1% of the 1%, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
but there's
you can't
always
win the
potential.
lottery unless you don't buy a ticket.
No, exactly. That's exactly right.
I have a hard time kind of setting that as a goal. Like, because for the longest time I didn't do content because I'm dyslexic
Mhm.
and I have trouble speaking. Sometimes I don't know, sometimes it comes across in the podcast. Typically I can cut it out of videos, like I'll get a little stutter,
Sure.
and it's like, okay, but I've always been self-conscious about that.
Mhm.
And it's one of the reasons why, like, I just like, yeah, I'm good. But I've always had a love of podcasting. When Final Fantasy
It
14 was
shows.
announced, that's where I was like, yes. I went out and bought like an M Audio because I was in a band, and like there's things like I like to push myself in different ways. And so I was like, yeah, I bought this little M Audio thing, and we started making a podcast, and it was fun.
Neat.
I think that's where luck is something interesting. Luck is like hard work meets opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so it's like there's the sense that when I started making actually content and people like really liked it, like there's definitely like an excitement there. I'm not gonna lie. Anybody was
Absolutely.
like, oh no, it's like no, like it's fun to be able to talk to other gamers about video games, and it's like there's a
Absolutely.
passion there. But then I looked at it and I go, well, this really isn't sustainable. And I was sitting down. I was as I teach up at church, so I was teaching confirmation at the time, and this is before Ninja blew up. All these kids were talking about Tyler, Ninja. I was like,
Mhm.
huh. Like, all right, so that's why I go check him out. I was like, oh, he streams Fortnite. Like, what's going on? I looked at it, I go, I was making content, but I wasn't like, yeah, we were maybe like 10, 20. But I looked at it and I said, oh, okay. I need to know everything about this. Like content. I need to know everything about streaming. I need to know everything about like YouTube, because all these kids are talking about is that's what they want to do. That's what they want to be.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sure my kids probably will say something similar. And so for the like, and you, if anybody's ever seen kind of the videos, like I say, and I continue to say, like, I don't do this for myself, because I don't. Like for me, it's like I like making content. That's fun. I enjoy making a video. There's a satisfaction I get in delivering something. Like there was nothing. I had an idea, and then I turned it into something. And ideally, those videos have value. They bring value to the viewer. Like it's like that's the aspect. But then I don't do it for me though. I do it so that I can understand what all this stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
So that if Maddie comes to me and she says, "Dad, I want to be a streamer," I'll say, well, let's avoid the hot tub directory and let's go and let's like, what do you want to make? Like, what do we want to do? And obviously, like, depending on like, because you don't see my kids, like they might pop into stream, but my kids aren't my content. I have a very strong opinion about content and what it means and what it isn't. You don't see a lot of my home life, like, because it's like my life isn't content. You know, like I see people struggle with that, right? So I've been able to talk with people and get like insight as to like where is that line in that regards. And yeah. So it's like that's just like I don't do it for me. This is educational in that regards. And I have a passion for it, but I know tomorrow I could get hit by a bus, or I could I could like not be like I've been busy as all get out. And there's like guides that I've literally been writing that I'm like, I could probably get done this weekend, but this weekend's about me because Julie's taking for my birthday. She took the kids. She's like, all right, I'm going to play games. I'm going to hang out with my friends. I consider you a friend. Like, and the fact that like, I honestly say like, you talk about like, oh man, Brian, it's like, just make something. People who like the barrier for entry is just to hit publish. And the millions of people who don't versus the handful of people who do, it's like you'll never know until you hit publish. The thing is, you might find that you don't like it. You might not like making videos. You might not like live streaming, despite the fact that Scott Zone got like death threats, which was inappropriate.
Yeah,
I've gotten death threats. I'm just like, all right, like
the people are crazy.
Some people are, but it's like that. He also discovered he didn't really like it,
right?
And it's like, yeah, he had a talent for it, but just because talent doesn't always like align up with like passion. And it's like, I have a passion. I love talking video games. I love it.
Yep.
And then, yeah, but the fact is that you took the steps, you hit publish. Like that's a portfolio. That's like, well, you make content, I'll check it out. Like, and I hope anybody listening here at the end of this, like we finished the podcast. We're not even recording this. This is just for you guys who are here. The after show. It will only exist over on Ginger Gaming Radio. So if you like it, clip it, send it to me, and we'll try to turn it into content. Right now, clipping on YouTube is weird because it literally doesn't show me what clips are made. It only shows me what clips I've made, and I'm not going back and watching my shows and clipping. Oh, that's really clever. I'm going to clip me. No. But no, it's like that's the whole reason. Like you're here. It's not because like you literally got over whatever that fear was or that block, and you hit publish. Yeah. And then it's like, and then you spoke up, like people were like, oh, I shouldn't self-promote. How else are you going to have people going to find you?
Exactly.
Like, just tell people what you're making and be passionate about that thing that you make. Like you're not going to see Brian doing like a million Fortnite videos. I just don't care.
Just don't do it on Reddit, folks. Don't do it on Reddit.
Reddit, you got, well, that's Reddit in a nutshell.
Oh, Reddit.
See, I love the fighter. Like when, like at the end of the day, Mysterio says true. I'm talented at first-person shooters, but I found that I don't like those games that much. Like, yeah,
that's funny. Yeah,
and like I love fighters. I love fighting games. It just is a time thing. Like, we were talking earlier. It's like like with Brian go full time. It's like people say, like, I guess maybe like when I retire, yeah, I might stream a couple days a week on a schedule and and more because I like it. But I probably would do a lot more fighting games. I'd probably dive back into that scene because I really enjoy the fighting game. But you don't really see coverage of it because I just don't have time to put the time in to get the skills that I used to have back. I used to do tournaments and stuff like that back in the day. It was so much fun.
Well, it's funny that you put that statement up because, for me, I love first-person shooters. I'm just not that great at them anymore. I'm too old. Whenever I was in my
it is a younger, I say man's game. It's a younger person's game in that regards. Yeah.
Yeah, I love first-person shooters. Like I was covering Scavengers there for a while whenever it was, at its apex and had a good following, and now it's died off, and now its player base is pretty bad. But I love the hell out of that game. It was a great game, and it has a lot of potential. But yeah, I mean, as far as first-person shooter goes, love them. But I'm just not that great at them.
Yeah.
You get a 16-year-old kid up against me. I don't stand a chance. Their reactions are way faster than mine.
Oh yeah, and that ends up being a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah,
like thankfully you wear glasses. I'm assuming those are prescription and not just for glare.
Yeah, it's funny, ironic story about that. So without my glasses, I actually have 20/20 vision. I wear the glasses to correct my vision to 20/15 because what happens is my eyes strain to see at 20/15. So I end up with like massive headaches and I get really, really sleepy.
I have 20/15 vision.
Yeah.
Still, so it's like, yeah, and it's like so far these are going great. Like eyes work fine.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
You're lucky. As soon as I hit 30, man, as soon as I hit 30, it was like downhill.
I can see through walls, people.
Yeah. Yeah, 2015 is great. Like anybody who has never seen 2015 and won't see it 2015, you don't know what you're missing.
Everything fantastic. Just looks better. Like why is Brian so cheerful? Everything's in 8K.
Yeah, man. or as the English would say, HD.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna go play some Final Fantasy. As friends and brother and stuff like that taking me out tonight. So I'm gonna go get some drinks. I'm probably gonna Uber. I don't like to get drunk. I just like to have like a kind of a running buzz.
Yeah.
So, but regardless, be safe, everybody out there. So I'm gonna Uber down to the spot and just kind of hang out and or maybe my brother will drive me. We'll see. Like I'm very lucky. I live close to family. So all right.
Fantastic. All right,
well,
Brian.
If you're over here on Twitch, yeah, dude, go chop those trees. If you're over here on Twitch, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep this party rolling. And if you're on the YouTubes, thanks for hanging out. And I'll get the podcast MP3 up. And appreciate y'all's support. Miss Dara, thank you so much for joining the membership over on Ginger Prime. It supports me and the family directly. But guys, follow Johnny. Like I pointed here and it's like there. All right, follow areas. Go follow him. We want to get him to 1,000.
Chat. High five, chat.
All right.
All right. Thanks,
Johnny.
Brian. Peace, guys. Dude. Thanks.